know what that's about. But the interesting thing is that tonight, I was in this meditation, and then I came across that statement about what came first, the chicken or the egg. And it's funny because they always throw that statement around, and it's kind of like a slapstick statement. It's just like, said all the time. And people know what it means because it's kind of like a paradox, but they just kind of blow right through it and not realize that it actually connects deeply to what we talk about the limit of this language and the limit of our expression, because we come from nothing. But we can't describe that. So the same thing is, that's the same paradox. What came first, the chicken or the egg? But see, this is like a key though, because you kind of know now based on metaphysics that the egg comes first. So it's interesting because in all of this immense power, what I notice is the consciousness, the way that it's getting more charged up is it's going into the egg state, because that's where we always are. That's actually where we are right now. And this is interesting. So even as a form of meditation and a practice, it's interesting to go into this maxim, because it's the real knowledge, because it actually connects to a lot of other things like the eye and the eye of God and the perceptions and really how you project yourself into a reality. So really what we're doing is we're actually thinking about this that we're experiencing right now. And we've been thinking about it so long that now we're actually inside of it. But we're still also at that point of thinking about it. And that's why they call that God's eye. So if you look at it like an egg, now you got this shell around the outside, right? That obviously is to protect things. That's not exactly, we know what the egg consists of. Then we got this yolk. That's to feed things and to nourish things while it's going through this process. And then, not the yolk, but the white. That's to feed things, to nourish things while it's going through this process. And then we got the yolk. And that's where the life form is living and generating from. And so now when we see this just as it really is, it's like we are that yolk thinking about this projection that we're actually experiencing right now. Like we're those beings. Like we're not humans as we know it. We're at, like you can say this is the atom. That's where we stopped off in semester 2, because it's like the atomic structure is more of akin to what you are. So let's just say it looks like an egg. That way we don't have to bring science into it. But the interesting thing is that now when we think about this pattern of the egg, and if somebody has their line open, you may want to mute it just because it does get a little scraggly. And some people be looking for that clean audio. So in a nutshell, literally, when you put yourself into this state of actually being the yolk and realizing that you're actually projecting the world that you're living in right now, but you're still the yolk, you're able to actually pull back off the entire framework. And without getting into too much of what's going to be coming through on Sunday, because I heard it's going to be more of a dialogue, so I can drop some knowledge here or raise some vibrations just in what, has been coming across. But it's just so deep right now, because there was also some knowledge cracked about how we're forgetting who we are. Like, how did you forget you were the yolk? And this has everything to do with 5, because if you look at shells, every time the turn of the shell, when it's building itself, it's making another layer, right? Are we all following this? So when the shell is building itself, it makes another layer in like a cycle. And every time it makes a layer, this like creates a film between the last layer. So if you can see the last layer is like your last go round, your last orbit, your last experience, you would see that the more layers you get, you start forgetting about all those go-rounds and all those experiences. And that's why they say that you got to have a breakthrough, because you're literally breaking through these walls or films that are separating you from who you truly are. And this is facts. Now, it even goes deeper, because we were talking about the film and the separation. Now, remember, this material also, which is a polymer, notice how shells, they build up this continuous material. But when we first started developing polymers as a society, plastics and these kind of things, castings, stuff that we would use to make statues, we got all that knowledge from how the shells were building and seeing how that whole process goes into this formulation. So what I'm getting to here is that this knowledge, like this sacred knowledge, that knowledge that was passed amongst our ancestors, our brothers, our sisters, etc., that was the unbroken chain, so that we can remember that this was always going on and that we can actually take advantage of the experience in an entirely different way. So let's say, for instance, now we're in the sea of forgetfulness, because what happens is that shells, as they keep building up, they get heavier and heavier and heavier, and they don't float. And, while they're very beautiful, it's still like, it keeps imprisoning itself in these cycles, forgetting about who it really is. And that's, it was interesting but when I saw that as a reflection point, it's like how consciousness moves. It goes from a state of what we call awareness to all-knowing. And it's interesting to pair those up together, because some people think that awareness and all-knowing are the same thing, but they're not. And I realized this because as I was closing my eyes, I started thinking about a world where I had no eyes. Okay? Because I started cracking into some knowledge that was showing that how the eye is set up, especially with the macula in the back and all this, that quote unquote God, if you may, the real supreme being, is on the back part of the eye. And then through the design of the eye, which is like a lens, it's like a convex triangle right there. And then it projects out this frequency that God, which is your higher state of consciousness, is thinking about. So you can pull yourself actually back into the point of where you really are. That's why we sold the superior brachium, because it is seriously like the Men in Black, the little being sitting inside the head, because the head is a microcosm. Remember, we were talking about that the head is by itself a body. It by itself is like an orb. It can exist on its own. But when we even pull back from the head, it's like these microcosms keep going, and now you're at the eye. And then when you're at the eye, the microcosm keeps going, and now you're at this atom and this ohm and that powerful force right there. And once you're at that point, something weird again starts happening with the reality that I can only explain this way. Encoding, because everything is emulated that we're seeing in reality off of how things are created on the metaphysical level. Encoding, like let's say, for instance, with the website Secret Energy, there's millions of lines of code. But what actually allows you to, what you see when you first go to the site, the images, which are basically images, it's like a layer laying over the site. That's only a few lines of code, actually. It's just some pictures loaded up. So imagine if you went into Secret Energy and you just see code. You don't even see none of the pictures or anything. That's how you're surfing the website. It wouldn't even be like an experience, right? So that's actually what's happening in the reality. Only few people are actually really coders that enjoy code. Okay, now let me crack code for you. Since this code is not written in English, it's actually not written in any language. The code is written in signs. So once you start focusing your eye, the signs that you start having are true. Like basically then, let's say God, which is you, uses the reality like a glove to talk to you. So all the plants, all the animals, all the trees, even the electronics, anything that is animate, which is everything, starts to become, let's say, a conduit of communication to you from your higher self. But this lens, though, needs to be focused. And this is why it's important now that, for those that are connoisseurs of this higher thoughts, start really looking at this eye and looking at lenses and start thinking about metaphorically how that relates. Because notice how, let's go deeper. Some people develop this thing where they start getting like a film over their eye, right? Like they start literally after a while building up a film or a callus over the eye. But the fact is that in the cornea, as you zoom in on it very deeply, you'll notice it's actually in perfect hexagrams, that there's actually already a field built over the eye. And this is where in occultism, they say that, let's say if there's a world of illusion, this is how the illusion takes place, because you're not looking from the front of the eye, you're looking from the back of the eye. So in certain tenses, you're not actually in yourself, you're in the projection of yourself. So we can all agree, hey, this sounds like it's on point. That's exactly what's happening. And it is. So when we zoom back, though, this is where the splendidness comes in. That still, regardless of how it feels to you, only 2 to 3% of the people in the world are actually at this level of getting this knowledge. Knowledge is not necessarily coming from me. It's not necessarily it's coming from a grander force that when it comes to you, if you're not ready for it, you won't get it anyway. You just won't be able to do anything with it. But if it comes to you and you can, if you're actually comprehending some of this and it makes sense, and you sit into these truthful meditations, because this is the true framework and how it's put together, it does bring the answer to the question. And let me explain that just very briefly. The answer to the question. Since something comes from nothing, this means that all real questions sum up to that. No matter the reality, no matter how much they bring these crazy questions and all this knowledge, they all sum up to this one question that can't be answered. So it's an energy then. It's not necessarily an actual question that's going to get answered. It's an energy. And how you go beyond this energy, basically making this energy harmonic with your field, is this technique and this realization of pulling yourself back. Because what happened is that just like a lens, you focus back, right? So you can get more of the frame. So when I was going into the Envision experience, I was equipping myself as much as possible for this experience. Like, I'm not dumb. I'm not just going to be like la-da-dee-da, like me and Mary Poppins skipping down the yellow brick road, and I'm going to go into Envision with my impeccable reputation and all of my tribe members and a sea of witches. Like, how would I not have to prepare for something like that, right? So that's adepthood. So I kept projecting myself into the space to see if I could find a point that there wasn't a lot of anxiety going on. See, because we do this all the time. Like when we start thinking about what we have to do in the future or what we have to encounter, especially with some of the uncomfortable things or the things that we know are going to put us in some pressure points, we automatically start feeling the anxiety related to that. And the reason why that's happening is because you actually go there and you're actually in those moments. But you're trying the odds. It's like you have this ability to go and try probable futures. And this was only revealed in the recent Marvel comic with the Thanos scenario where they asked, how did the guy, Dr. Strange, traveled to the future several times, and he was geeking out. And they were like, yo, what's going on with Buddy? And they kind of woke him up out of it. And they said, what's going on? And he said, man, I traveled to all probable futures to see if we can beat Thanos. And they were like, how many did you go to? He was like 1,567,501 or whatever. And they were like, well, how many did we win? He was like 1. So then that's like, okay, we got to get there then. So the reality is that we try out these probable futures in our consciousness based on our experience, which is our knowledge, and it gives us an idea of what we should be dealing with. However, we're doing that in English. We're even doing that in the signs and in the symbols of what we've learned from this aspect of the reality. We're not necessarily waiting to the point where the symbol is going to reveal itself anyway. Right? And I'm not saying that's everybody doing that, but let's say, for instance, this is what happens sometimes. So I got a chance to realize that I was going to be experiencing a lot of anxiety as I was pulled apart from all the different forces that would want to, communicate the energy. But I found a position that was actually very harmonic. And I actually been staying in that position ever since. And maybe some have noticed the more polished transitions of the shows and things. And it's a calm because you're not even actually inside of it. You're actually where you really are. You get it? So some people think like, you're not present. It's like, I'm very present. I'm actually seeing everything. In fact, you need to chill out a little bit because I'm actually watching you from another level. But the reality is that this is the way that you're actually able to handle all of those energies, because what happens is you see the mosaic. You don't see the dark paint, the dark greens, the baritones, the drums. You don't see any of that. You just see this whole kaleidoscope of images because you're pulled so far back. And how that appears to everybody else, honestly, this technique is the onset of invisibility, because people stop being able to sense your presence in the reality. And it's almost like they don't miss you anyway. That's why they always say out of sight, out of mind. It's like if you died. So, but meanwhile, you're just in the corner over there. And what you've done is, if you put yourself into the proper position to be able to know where these connections are happening. So it's like looking at a map. Notice how all the maps are this kind of view. It's like a pullback of the whole thing that lets you see the entire terrain. This is how we must address life, especially from henceforth, especially in the awareness of who we are. We are the God's eye, and in every tense projecting our own realities. And there's a lot of confusion here, because it's interesting, because I've seen some people, especially throughout the years, that have bought some very powerful knowledge, but somehow have become entangled by the dualistic components of the knowledge. So I believe personally that this is what it means to actually be a master, is when you're able to transcend the ability of acting like fire is actually better than ice, when both of them are actually extremes. And realizing in every single aspect that all of this will begin to fade away as we start to become aware of who we are, because we break down this film. And then we have facts, because the ones that are perpetrating a lot of the knowledge, because this stuff is just as basic as study botany, right? Like if you know polymers and films that come on plants, and then you know the human skins and the outside of the skins, and especially reptiles, are all related to plants. This is why when you get on some of these substances, you look at a tree, you're like, man, this is a snake. But I feel comfortable. I don't know what's happening here. But you know, this is like some kind of transitional phase. And then you see the insects, and you're like, okay, maybe this is like a transition into that. But after a while, you know, if you're tapping in deep, you realize exactly what's going on. And it's just saying that the fabric in the film of the reality, the skin, which sometimes brings about this shiny, illustrious illusion, which is a projection completely made of light. It first starts off with our energy, right? And we're doing this in our minds right now. We're projecting our energy into a convex sphere, which is our eye. And we're focusing all of our power, in most cases, into projecting us being able to see what's going on around us all the time, right? And this is what becomes so interesting when you close your eyes, when I want to revisit that. So when you close your eyes like Stevie Wonder and you're blind, and you're forced to see through the reality in an entirely different way. And that's when you start feeling how alienated it becomes. So I was actually, you know, I had to jump in the barbershop earlier today, which was the onset of the traffic. And when I was in the barbershop and I, you know, took a moment to just turn everything off, because I do this thing now, because I haven't even been asleep. I've been up since 1. But now I have this thing where I get a moment, I just kind of turn the vehicle off and I charge it for a little bit, and then I turn it back on. And in that moment, wow, I mean, there was just so much when I was sensing the reality, okay, from the music. You know, obviously they had some crazy techno music playing. The TV was going, so that underlining that the TV gives off when your mom be like, turn that TV off, even though you got it turned on real low, that frequency is on, the clippers are on. And I'm realizing that so many things are on from this artificial, let's say, well, I don't want to get into artificial, but every sense of lowered creational forms. You know, if I would have cut my hair, maybe I'd do it with a platypus beak or something. I don't know. Just, you know, just all these extra devices and things that are repetitively blocking the frequency. Okay. The noise, I call it. That's what it's called. It's called the noise. Because like all around us, whether it's the truck shaking the ground, somebody honking their horns miles away, there's all these interruptions to the blind eye, if you may, as they call it, being able to actually see. Because when you close your eyes, there's still so much to think about, right? So it's almost like, well, it's not almost like, it is really like, now we're going into this great opening where really the universe is going to show us the next stage of who we are. And there's some very candid things that I still don't see people actually talking about. And I realize that that's got to roll out before we actually get to that phase. So that's what it's become interesting for me, because I know the world is going to come into a certain level of truth. And it's going to be interesting to sit back and watch with some popcorn, hopefully pop from some Native American, completely organic corn. But what I'm saying is that, see, it's the beast. The beast, okay, is a continuous reference towards that the human bodies are created from different parts of animals and life forms. And when we use that body, we're living in the form of the beast. So look how crazy this is. It's like we're in a reality right now where we're acting out like our animal sides. We're in our animal form right now. Okay? And this is how you know, because like you take the body in sections, you take it in the 5 sections, take those legs, right? Here's a joke. You take those legs, right? Go to grandma's house and she may have them same pair of legs in a pot. You know, you take the knees, you just start breaking the body down into smaller pieces where you're not seeing the whole parts. And then you match it up to the animal parts and they're identical. Okay. Not only this, there's a book that one of the sisters, she may even be on the line. She was going through an experience and she said she ran into this book in France. She was in France and, you know, the spirit was guiding her. And she woke up early in the morning. She found this bookshop. There was this book there sitting there for $10. She bought the book and it was about, and she could tell it was something related to something old in the occult, books in French. And what the book is basically detailing is the process of how, like, if you go in, even now, there's a few guys here, but if you go into Italy or Greece during a certain time and you look at the men there and the women there, they will favor in many ways boars or certain kind of pigs and things. And if you go into other cultures, I swear, man, one of the guys at the hotel, no doubt he was a sloth. Like, yeah, he was cool though, but he had it. He was him. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, I wonder if he's seeing it. Now, here's another thing. Like, remember when I first began the journey, I had taken that PlayStation 3 camera or 2. I don't know. It's been a long time. I guess that was PlayStation 2. I took the PlayStation 2 camera and I put it on the mirroring setting. This is like just anytime you mirror. You can also do this in software right now, especially with videos. But in the mirroring setting, and then I had set it to sepia, which puts that little yellow tone over things. And then I inverted it. And it had all those settings that you could just place on the camera as filters. And then I took a picture of my face. And what I saw in that picture, which I still have somewhere hanging around here, was like, you saw like a tiger, but a saber-toothed tiger. And then you saw like in the top of the head, like a small, like monkey kind of being. And now they say this is also a phenomenon that we always look for the eyes in things. So no doubt when you do pair things together, you seem to see a lot of eyes, right? But that is the whole thing, because it's all eyes. And this is why in these prophecies it says, oh, I saw the beast. He had 10 eyes, 20 eyes, 30 eyes, freaking them out, right? But what this is about is that this is a billion-eyed beast we've now become. If you get where I'm coming from. See, because now the spirits are animated into the fleshly bodies, but the flesh is also a form itself. It has a story. It has a lifestyle. It has a career. It has a social status. So we've joined into a world as spirits into the flesh. And man, we're going deep now. I can't go anymore. Jeez. Whoa, we just hit an asteroid belt. Give me a minute. Serious. It was like I in that conversation right there, I just kept traveling. And I kept traveling. And it was going to reveal everything. And I just hit an asteroid field. I'm just saying, like, I just take a moment to breathe. But wow, I mean, so this is what's happening, I guess. And let me just digress for a minute. And hello, everyone. Wholeness and Balanced Vibrations. It's me. And I just wanted to say what's up and just tell me, keep coming back, man. I'm a metaphysical anonymous. This is Metaphysical Anonymous. I just keep coming back. So I'll just digress for a moment, just to let it breathe and, and let it resonate. And, obviously I have lots to share or I did have a lot to share. And I just wanted to make sure, tonight, because it's a very special time. And I'm already on the 22nd. I was actually on the 22nd early this morning. I was, I had sent a couple messages out and I was like, hey, man, it's the 22nd. Everybody kind of emailed me later and they were like, hey, man, it's the 21st. And I was like, not where I'm at. I'm not in the 21st, man. I'm actually in the 22nd. I'm in the Tomorrowland, homie. And it's because we know that these are very important times. And as celestial beings, and this is why the stars come forth during these times, like the big stars, So, because those are like the big rotations of the clock. That's why we're all in this presence right now, because we're coming forward. And the lesser stars, the ones that have been doing all the shining until we stepped onto the scene, they're stepping back. Because when you see even what we're developing, the level of intelligence that's going into what we're doing, the level of connection, the amount of synchronicity, the amount of invisible guides and assistants, the amount of knowledge and wisdom and experience. You know, we got an entire country, Costa Rica, being rolling with us and willing to assist in the transformation too. And so that's what looking through the back of the eye allows us to truly see, is who we really are. Nothing. You see, that was what I realized in the end of the meditation, that that's what all this really means. This is where nothing comes from. When you close your eyes and you just are feeling the signs and the symbols until you can go so deep to where you see, when we say breakthrough, it's more like a pass through. Because remember, in the atomic form, and I'm going to give it to you right now. In the atomic form, you can pass through the film of the beast. You can pass through a carbon filter. Okay? But in this form of consciousness, you can't. You're too big. You're like a titan. Your consciousness is too lethargic and too primitive in itself as far as what is really happening to be able to move out of this field to what? Above the speed of light. Because now let's say all this is just conducted in the eyeball and the lens. So above the speed of light is literally getting you into the top half of the hourglass. Okay? Because this convex light, how it bends, it looks like an hourglass when the two triangles hit each other. So the top half is the real half. And the bottom half is the byproduct. Just like I was saying, there's no sunset for the sun. So the top half is projecting, the bottom half is the remembering. And this is why I think that there's these prophecies about when somebody looks back, they just turn to stone. And what it's really saying is, man, keep going forward, keep raising your vibration. Don't look back into the past, because that's just the beast. And if you want to blame the beast, well, the beast is untamed. So this would be like blaming something wild for being wild. And then also word to the wise, because we love nature, right? I love nature. Okay, well, let that thing start chewing on your leg. You know, let old wolf come out hungry. Let old crocodile, you know, then it's like, you know, now I'm going to stay your way out of that then. Okay, so it's a real thing. And so what's happening for us, though, because we're in the egg, that means our parents, like big birds, are sitting on us. And we're about to come out, some of us, that we have this opportunity to just dial into this in a very serious way, because we can see all the connections that we share, not only with each other, but also what we share so special in our reality as being a part of this existence and being given this gift to go through this process, you know, despite what we feel like it's going on. It's like a tattoo. It really does hurt. Like I said, you pay with the pain, like the gifts. As we talked about, somebody's got to pay for the gifts. Who's going to pay for the gifts? The parents. But now you're the parent now. You taking on the parenting role of yourself. You like, I don't need gods anymore, external forces. I'm going to go on myself. So now you must learn how to take the light. You must learn how to take the reality, the bitter medicine. Why? Because beyond laughter, which is the Joker's card, very powerful. The Joker is actually more powerful than all the gods. I was reading about it today. It was very interesting. However, in the transitional phase, man, you just reach something so much more beyond. So I'm going to stay there. I'm going to stay there for a moment. I'm going to hop off my boat and jump on this island. And I just said that a minute ago, and I would just stop. Turn it off, please. Turn it off. It's like that movie Fi. It just won't stop. Like, I haven't even been to sleep. But like Jeanette was like, so you weaned yourself off all the foods and you're still good. You're just pretty much eating avocados. You're only drinking this little bit of water. And then now what's next? And I'm like, I guess it's sleep, because I just can't sleep. It's like, I just can't. And so that's what it is. It's a beautiful time to be in. And I'm glad I'm able to share. I'm sure it resonates, because I'm only speaking to the council. And this is what I realized also was very deep about how our connection works, is that, okay, so let me, I said I was going to stop. One more. Let me just show you how the framework works one more time. So, okay, I'm gonna stop for a minute, because this is, I'll get to it in a minute, but it's just about the GUI. It's just about how the framework works and how we interact with it. But I'll take a moment and just take a breath. So how's everybody also doing? I mean, are we synchronized on this process? Because I guess that's what I was about to say, is that the synchronicities start to get so rich. All the people that you're around have so much meaning. You really see the collective experience and the collective growth between all of our connection. And so, yeah, all right.
Man, look, we're so synced up, brother. I'm just rice cakes and avocados, man. Real talk, man.
Yo, that's since the Costa Rica way.
Since I left there, man, I've been all rice cakes and avocados, man.
A little mango or something every now and then. But it's interesting how, and I'm not saying, I don't want to create a consensus here of the avocado eating cult. I think we got one of those already, David Wolf. But the reality is that there is a lot of things that's happening to us all individually that's encouraging us to get lighter. And so whether that means getting rid of the old boyfriend or eating avocados, it seems like some things are passing away. And definitely this is allowing us, see, the signs are already here, though. This is what I just wanted to say. Congratulations. You made it without incident. And this is the reality. When you look at the percentages of how many beings are actually at this stage of awareness and ready to crack into that next phase and accept that responsibility of the seriousness. The seriousness is also fun. And that's what I was going to talk about. Okay, bam, there it is. Okay, so remember, so the Joker is the card that is the joke, right? And there's nothing, though, that really cracks a very serious scenario than a joke, right? So that's kind of like why the Joker is more powerful than God, because the Joker can always crack a joke. And why everybody can be like, oh, serious, like, God, oh, my goodness, we're going to all get destroyed. Then the Joker can come and crack a joke and just change the frequency of everything, okay? So this is just changer. So you don't have gods of death. You have gods of transmutation. So all these archetypes are they're transmuting us as elements. But there is one more phase beyond the Joker, obviously. Like, actually, there's quite a few phases, but there's, like, let's say the opposite of Joker, because people don't realize the Joker is God. That's why the Joker is the jackal. The jackal is the dog. The dog is wet, which is basically Ra, right? It's the front eye, meaning the sun god, but the one facing this direction. So that's how the whole thing is about the whole sun god and all of that and what that's all about. This place is even called Lycanopolis. It's like actually where what Heliopolis was originally called. So there's a deep connection. But remember, that's the beginning. So there's a deep connection. This being has the power to transmute, is weighing souls or weighing hearts by the scales, and it's bringing beings back to life. This is all the jackal, the Joker's role. And it's doing this all in the reality, and almost to the point where it doesn't even know what it's doing, because it's also kind of like crazy in that way. So that's the backside of God. That's God's shadow. Okay. So the front side actually is really serious. So because the Joker is a joke, the front side is really serious. And so I can just explain very briefly how how this energy works. If you ever been on any journeys before, if you get administered a little too much medicine, or the medicine starts kicking in really strong on you, it goes from I can handle it to something very serious, where you start actually thinking, is this it for me? Especially if some stuff starts coming out of the field and all that, like you just end up in this very scary kind of serious mode. But in there, though, most of the knowledge is learned, right? Because if they're cracking jokes, some stuff is learned, but not a lot. But in the serious, you're going to learn something from that, right? If you make it out of that, that's going to give you wisdom and experience. But see, you have to be free with these energies. That's why they have that Hiroko. I think they call it the Hiroko. This is the shamans that there's the joking side. Because see, the reality is that we all would balance each other by, yo, you be the joker so I could be serious. All right. Or I want to be joking this time so you be serious. And then it would really work for us. That's what they call the change of guard when it was done perfectly. It's like you would get so like already over with being what you were. You would be ready to exchange your position for another position, and then someone else will come into your place. And that's how you would have experiences. Now, how the beings are working is they stay in their positions, they gain all the experience, and they use that as their power. But the problem is that they don't have that flexibility, right? And so that's really what this is all about. That's what this new movement, if you want to call it that, is really about, is about having the flexibility to be able to tap into the divine feminine and masculine, the joker and the serious, the marketing and the metaphysics, basically being able to bring the marriage, because the marriage has already happened. And that's what I brought on my recent show. The marriage is happening, but many people are going through fights, arguments, the divor. Look at the word divor. Man, that's a really crazy word. Like if I ever wanted to name a demon, I'd name him divor. Hey, divor. Look, it means to tear apart and to suck down. Damn. And that it describes the energy. It really describes, like I said, with the whole division thing, that is the whole thing. Because see, when we're together, what's really happening? We're building a web. We're building like a raft. We're building a boat. We're building an ark. That's what happens when we come together. So then all of that, the chasm, it's like this huge, all of this, it's like, it looks like a drain, but we're building this net and these large ships in the drain, powerful enough to propel out of the drain. And so I just want to encourage everybody here on the line to stay encouraged because, that's how it works. The drain literally it feels like your energy is drained. A lot of people around are sad. It does really feel like walking through sludge because they're in an illusion. Everything that I just explained to you gives you facts why they will never find love. Think about it. That's why they say the Joker is also connected to the Cupid, who's also February 26th, which is basically the day of the turning of the equinox. The turning of the equinox, it's other holidays. But basically what this is about, it's like a false love. And it just becomes like a joke. It's like, are you serious? This is love? This is a joke. And that's what it's really meant. Because comedy is also tragedy, right? Like that's how that whole smile now, cry later thing came about. Because think about the Joker. If he doesn't make a transition or it doesn't make a transition, it's a masculine force, but a female can have it. If it doesn't make a transition, this smirk becomes painted on the Joker's face, but that's not how the Joker feels, right? Think about what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is if we don't grow up, if we don't get into this higher stage of our wisdom, even like people that play all the time, people who are still in the club, it starts to become like that smile and that fun starts to become like their grimace. It starts to become what is holding them back and what is the dark cloud over their lives. So these are the metaphors. These are the blueprints. And it gives you a key directly to yourself. It lets you know the highest level of arcana, how the projection is really created right in your eyeball. And it's crazy because the power of your eyeball, because we think about like all these other parts of the body. We think about all these other things, different chakras and stuff. But man, to get to the world in the morning that you know about, you need eyeball. If you have no eyeball, you come to a different world. Even though you're still here, you don't see anything anymore. And this is how I was feeling through the spiritual plane. Because once I got beyond this world and all the static and the chaos, it just sounds like bending metal and screaming and horror. That's what it basically sounds like. And it's just all of the stuff that's playing in the reality. It's like hard rock, literally. Yo, there it is. There you go. Another jewel. Remember, we were talking about how there was really no land masses early in the game. Like you see the Atlantis maps and all that. And then you look at the mythology. They say we are all on celestial boats. So that means even on the physical version, everybody rode around in boats. All the trading was done at the bank, which is so everybody was moving through the ocean and Niles and all that. There was few land masses. So what creates land masses? And we were talking about how that's the bones, the buildup of the bones. But even deeper, it's the hard rock. It's the density of the lower frequencies. And that's science, right? That's physics. Up high in the atmosphere, there's argon gas, radon gas, and you can go and get those gases. You can even go and distill those gases. They put them in light bulbs and stuff for cars. But notice how everything is really there as far as the knowledge. They use the argon gas or these higher gases up in the higher atmospheres to make the lights. So also subconsciously inside of us, if we want to work with the higher consciousness of our being, we work with the lights of our consciousness. And those lights are the same thing that's projecting the dream in front of you, right? Like you close your eyes at night and you see another world. And this is where the joy comes in. Look at this. This means if when you close your eyes, you see another world, I guarantee you could come bill it to me. If when you close your eyes here for good, you don't start seeing another world again. Think about what I'm saying. When you close your eyes here for good, you will start seeing another world again. Just like when you go to bed at night and you close your eyes, you start seeing another world, but that world is not this world. So what makes us think that that's not going to continue to happen? But even deeper, what makes us not be so encouraged to tap into that facility now that we know that that's how that really works? And why we believe in this one so much, because people say, well, why am I here? Why am I here? Because you believe in this one so much. When you're still in the egg, this is the one that you like. This is the one that you keep coming back to. This is the one that you keep thinking about. But when you get wise, that's when you start putting the childish things away. You start putting the joker box away. Now, remember the joker box. Monkey chase the weasel. Pop goes the weasel. Right? And this is the children's toy with the joker box. So who's the joker? And why is he in a box? And why is it a certain amount of turns until he pops out? So it's all there. And zooming back, and just get off of it though. Get off. It's on your face, on your eyeball. So you got to step back. And, we're going to talk about on Sunday, failing to step back you lose everything. It's not just you're losing friends. You're going to lose everything. Division takes everything. That's why they always talk about, oh, you can't take it with you. All those people who are hooked on these old currents that don't flow anywhere, you can't take it with you because you can. But there is something that you can. And that's how we get light. That's what this is all about. This is so powerful. The only thing I'm encouraged to do is, just relax and, finish configuring the landing page and the automations and the affiliates. And because I'm using all of that intelligence, because I'm challenging, again, I was talking to Sven about this, but I'm challenging myself to stay balanced because I'm like spiritually extreme at this point. This is spiritual extremism, by the way. This is what it looks like. It's all accurate, but you got to sit with it. You got to live with this stuff every day. You got to function with it with a family and kids and friends. And it's a bit much. And it never stops talking. But the challenge is to balance that out with, okay, but you really did reach a balance. So as much as that you're receiving from that, as much as you're able to just nullify it. And this is what happens in the reality. This is another secret. So as you begin to accumulate things, and it always happens. Remember, I got rid of a whole life 10 years ago. And then just like a barnacle, a lot of life built back up again over the shell. Right? Let me go back at it again. Many of us have turned over new leaves on life like Andy Dufresne and found ourselves after another cycle, 10 years, back into another thing again. It's like, yo, you did it again. It's different. You applied more wisdom, but you have a tendency to actually be kind of tangled back up again. And now this is a part of the cycles. This is a part of how we really function. We have like a real string thing going on. Why we would want to just be that ball, there's a string coming off the back of that ball. And what I witnessed also during the new moon, during when we were at Envision, was the cosmos, because now I'm just only dealing with cosmos. Cosmos only sending signs. The cosmos pulled apart the masculine and the feminine components for a moment. Like, you two break up. Now, remember, I was telling everybody there had to be a demand for unity, right? I said, we need to demand unity. And they were like, well, what does that mean? Because it came to me. I was reading something on the Mindful app page, and then it was trying to decode itself. And it said, no, you got to demand unity. And I was like, well, what does that mean? Because that sounds like forceful. Sounds forceful. And it said, exactly. You got to force people to do what's going to benefit them. And I was like, man, that's kind of hostile. That sounds like the old Jehovah God. So no, not at all. Because it's like parents. Because when these kids start fighting, you got to force them to come together. And if you watch your parents, when they say, okay, you two stop fighting, you stop fighting because you're scared of what's going to happen next. You see what I mean? So that's actually what's about to happen to the world. They're going to stop fighting because they're going to be very afraid about what's going to happen next. And that's the sign that's going to come to them. But we don't got to wait for that time. We go now into this unified component in demanding unity. And this means that you actually got to demand that back into yourself. I'm not saying you got to demand that from other people around you. You got to actually demand back into yourself from all those entities. Because now when you start seeing this vista, and you're talking to yourself in the illusion, something's even answering back. What have you created? Magician? See, I saw this book a long time ago. It was about Solomon, and it was showing like him walking, and all these little imps and stuff was trying to pull on his coattails, and he was agitated by it. And it had a little excerpt on the bottom and said, a warning to the mages who invokes imps and does not keep them maintained. They will become a worry later on in the magician's life. And what they're talking about is that, hey, don't really do any petty magic about you just falling in love with the girl or whatever, because this is going to later on in life really get you. But hey, it happens to all magicians, meaning a lot of people evoke little petty things with their magic. And these are like little petty energies that they evoke. And then even long after they're done loving the person and they've gotten fulfilled with whatever it is the gratification is, and they think that they're done, this little baby, which is not unlike the incubus and succubus, is still living out there on the spiritual plane, or in that coil, or in that universe, or in that projection that's inside of your shell. So that's why they talk about dissolving that and absorbing that back into yourself. You see, so they say that, okay, you have so many of you split all over the place. You need to start basically killing them, removing them, bringing them all into one space. And like I said, there's nothing that is killing. There's no gods of death. So you're transmuting them. So all of those external forces, and what I'm diving into here is that when we accumulate, because we naturally do it, you know, I've accumulated aura at this point. I've accumulated the wife at this point. I've accumulated the community at this point. This is what I'm talking about. This is the shells. This is the buildup. It just, you got to say it as what it is. But you got to be willing to let it go. And that's the master. If you can be always willing to let it go, you can have it all. But at any point where you start trying to hold it, it builds up on you. And what happens is literally, and this is now trinary knowledge, is this moment is like locked in time. You start basically building up in a moment in time. It's like you're in stasis. You're no longer going forward. You're actually like stuck in this continuous loop with this memory that you won't let go, right? Because the memory is like sitting over there. Like I had this thing, like after I got all the printers and the 3D printers and I wanted to go into manufacturing. But then I was like, man, I really need to lower my footprint though. And every time I kept trying to find a place that would house all these machines and everything also, I couldn't find anything. And so I ended up in this weird conundrum. And I'm just giving you an example because I was like, well, I know I got to go forth and keep manufacturing and keep creating things. And that way we end up becoming leaders of our industry. It's pioneers. But at the same time, this stuff is like, I need to get rid of it. And I was betwixt. It always will happen. This will always happen. I started realizing that I started working deeper on the cosmic clocks, which are wild. I got a cosmic clock right now that's too powerful. I think I just assemble it. So at this point with the cosmic clock, as I've been working, I've really been using this one machine because there's no reason to actually boot up the big giant machines until I'm ready to run a lot of them. So I've been using this one machine. I said, well, I'll be damned. I could just go on with this one machine. Like I just have this one machine in my backpack, like the fool with the machine that could do everything. And it would be just literally like that. And for whatever reason, I released all my possessions at that point. But this was all symbolic, okay? Because also symbolically in my life, especially during this Envision Festival, I felt a completion and I felt a release. And so this is what we're talking about here, is that there's always going to be accumulation on your ship, okay? Barnacles, right? This is why you got to encourage everything around you to be responsible for its energy and actually stay on high vibration. So that way we don't start dealing in time loops. We're always at the tip of ourselves. We're always at the sunset of self. Because if we start arguing, we're going into division, that's past. We know division equals past, right? So the moment we start doing that, we start getting pulled into the past, pulled into the lack of awareness. How the hell I'm arguing with myself? What the hell is this? See, because that's what you would be doing. Literally, you would be arguing with all the projections in which you're creating. And this is how you know you're creating them. If you decide to walk away. If you had the cojones, it would be all over with. And it's just like that, and even deeper. Just like I talk about in the Code of the Matrix, we still remain in ultimate power with our hand hovering over the kill switch. If we so choose, meaning that if the human being wants to even terminate their body, they could even do that if they wanted to. You know, it takes a lot to actually do that. But I'm just saying, ultimate power is already shown to be in the hands of yours truly, you. And so these conversations become very instrumental, especially on 321, 322. They've already crossed over on one side. And us understanding just, hey, I'm in alignment. I know exactly what I'm doing. I got this under control because I was actually present in the council. We did have the mistress of speech. Okay, I was playing that role tonight. What is that? Remember that book that I gave everyone about the jackal and the Nomo, and then that's it again. We're back at that again because we know who the jackal's role is, the twin, and you know he's got a whole story around him. If you wanted to read more about the jackal's character, because it's very enigmatic, because many people that change things start off on that first card, right? And then so yeah, we can go from there, but you can see now again for yourself how you've graduated. And that's why every single thing that we're even developing and doing now is actually taking on a massive metamorphosis. And even though there's technical aspects to what we're doing, I feel the spiritual presence assisting with deciphering the technical noise, because there's a lot of stuff out there to dial us right into what we need to be doing at exactly the time that we need to be doing it in exactly the order that we need to be doing it in. And I'm doing that, not obsessing about it and not having anxiety about it, as far as like not obsessing about it and not having anxiety about it, as far as like I'm doing it in a more balanced and a better way, if you may, by just being real and being in the position of behind the eyeball and visualizing what's happening in the world, but from the throne of the consciousness. And that's it. Like you're going into the throne of your consciousness now. You're no longer the projected shadow. You're not God's shadow. You don't own that website, godshadow.com. Because I had cracked into this. It's like, I felt like I was God's shadow at a certain point, that I had the potential, but I just wasn't there yet. And now I see how that all connects with all of us in our growing process, because we all have the potential to be like our parents. And I feel like that this group that we're working with, this tribe, they're there. So wholeness family, like that's all I really have to say tonight. I know that was a bit to digest, but man, I just want to take that little chunk of conversation right there, man, and send it to the world. Like, I feel like that there's, for those, that's why they say, he who has ears, let him hear. For anyone that hears that, it simplifies things, and it puts the power back again into your own consciousness. It puts your power right back there. Like, let me start working on this tonight. I know, because we all have these moments, like we know this is true, so nobody can run from it. Anybody who stands with it will stand till everything folds away, right? But the truth is that, wow, like accepting, okay, as ships, if you get stagnant, you start sitting still, you start like getting bogged down by the hard rock and the heavy metal, all the anxieties, the jealousies, the envies, the things we're so familiar with. Like if somebody says, hey, name all the negative traits. It's like we can go jealousy, envy, hatred, dishonesty. It's like we can just keep going and going and going. It's like, yeah, all of those are the barnacles. And they build up and they wear holes in our ship. Literally, they wear holes in our ship and then they make us leak. There it is again. As a ship, like you're leaking now. It's like you're taking, so they say in this text, you would be taking on water, but it's inverted. You actually start leaking, right? And we see how that works because since it's all inverted, we're in the water now. So when you start taking on damage, you start leaking. You start leaking, oh shit, all my containment fluids, all my power is going out. You know, what's happening? Oh, I'm letting too many barnacles build up around my field. And then when all that starts building up around your field, you start getting scared. You don't know where everything's going to be happening, what's going to go on. And then all you're doing is locking everyone into that space. You're locking them into that shell and into those memories. Now you have the opportunity to set it all free. And then simultaneously set yourself free. And that's how it works. That's how giving really works. So that's what's up. So any additional thoughts on that?